All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another Nolecast. Not in a perfect podcasting place. So if you hear a little bit of an echo on my end, apologize. This is just a hotel room edition of the Nolecast, morning edition of the Nolecast. And as always, we thank our fantastic sponsors, whether we're in our home offices or on the road. Legendary Home Loans, Congruity, Madison Social, and the great title sponsors that are Louisiana Hot Sauce and Tarpon Cellars. So great guys. I'm real excited to have this spring tailgate that the Battle's End's putting on. Brought down about 5 cases of Tarpon Cellars. I can't imagine that we ever go through even 2 of those, but I can assure you they're here and we're ready. So look forward to seeing as many of y'all out at the spring game with the Battle's End tailgate that runs from 11 to 3:30. And would point you to the battlesend.com or the Battles End social media if you have any other questions, or you can hit me up on social media. My brother, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, man. Doing real well. Just excited to get up there for the spring game. I know today we're going to talk about like which guys we're most excited for. Maybe go back and forth, a little draft style. I think that's interesting. Did we do a Nolecast after Elite 11? I think we did, right? Because Chrome and Hoke had looked good. I think we mentioned this. Anyway, yeah, like guys, he's very talented, really toolsy, and what we've been saying about him on this show for about 2 years is consistent with what he showed. So that's kind of the newest thing, really, with the exception of this. Big Meech Larry Hoover got his waiver approved, man, or his appeal of the waiver. That's I would say nothing but good news overall. Right.
It's massive. It's fantastic. I mean, Meech just personally is a great dude and somebody that you would want to root for, just from my own personal limited interaction with him, and really excited for him. Selfishly, as fans of Florida State football, he happens to be a hell of an interior offensive lineman as well. And I mean, look, if you left last year, and this is like a soccer cliche that you hear all the time. Like basically, you've gotten 2 signees that you didn't expect per se, as far as like if you kind of wrote Bless Harris off or you kind of forgot about him because of when and how that injury occurred. And, basically every meaningful snap that you took last year, you didn't have him. And then if you assumed that Meech was going to go on to whatever it is that, whatever mode of professional football lies for him, well, you got Meech coming back for a 6th year, and Bless Harris has been one of the more impressive offensive line pieces that you have. So I think you went into spring fairly optimistic about an offensive line and the positions and, what the ultimate pieces of that group would look like. And it's only been more impressive as to what the actual final product may end up looking like. So
I agree with you there. I mean, so I think it's great that you got Meech back. I think it's great for him. Like, I don't think he's going to play in the NFL personally, right? Like a guy who was a Charlotte recruit, came to Florida State, played as a quality ACC guard, but like not a standout, like a guy that you can count on to give you good snaps. Will have, good games against like the bottom half of the ACC. I think he's good with double teams. If he has to play like really elite competition, I would be concerned. Like if he has to solo Mason Smith in that game coming up against LSU, right? If Florida ever
to be
gets
fair, it's a wildly tough task for almost
yes.
any offensive lineman in the country. But
I mean, we had him as a top 10 kid. Rivals had him as like the number 1 player in the country. Like, does that game last year in the Dome go differently if he doesn't tear his ACL on like the first drive? I don't know. Probably not, but like it wouldn't be easier. I would tell you that if he was in there. So I think this guy is a valuable piece. I also think it's awesome for him. He can come back and get another year of schooling on the school's dime, right? Like for his post college football career, or maybe he goes and plays XFL. I shouldn't say he won't play professional football. I don't think he's like an NFL player, but there are other avenues down. I mean, like Jaquez Patrick is still playing in the XFL. I mean, I don't know what those guys make, but I don't think they're working, like part-time at Home Depot or something during the week. So that's at least like probably a living wage playing football. I say this to say, like, it also says something about the state of this room that he's a likely but not guaranteed starter, I would say. Like, there's not a 0% chance that he gets beaten out by somebody. Like somebody could beat him out. There's a lot of potential in this room, especially on the interior.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you brought in guys and Byers and Roddick that are really nice pieces of clay, and obviously you'd love for Roddick to get the snapping game down, but we'll see if that occurs. But still, a really physically gifted kid that you're going to want to try to get on the field somewhere. The kid from Auburn, maybe a little bit more of a 1 to 2 year project, but look, there's going to be competition across this line. I personally think Meach ends up being a starter, and maybe you've got Byers as the other guard, and then you can start to dream, pretty wildly big dreams when it comes to what you can do in the run game if your interior is a Roddick or perhaps a Mo Smith who's continued to beat everybody out, and then those two are your guards. So exciting times.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all right. We got transfer portal opening up on the 15th. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Kind of wanted to go through some other stuff from some of the opponents that we're seeing so far in their spring, but let's focus on Florida State. Let's just go back and forth and draft guys that we are most excited to watch in this spring game, just from a fan perspective, guys for whatever reason that you're excited to get out there and see.
I think it's a great idea. Let's go for it. Now, who gets the first pick here?
All right. Do I have a coin up here?
The momentary pause was me putting my draft board together ever so quickly in my mind.
I don't know if I have a coin. What do I have on my desk? I have I have this magnetic chip clip thing. So I'll go ahead and flip this. All right. If it lands flat side down, that's me. If it lands other side down, it's you. Okay.
The most scientific of flips.
All right. That was a terrible flip. Actually, let's do it so the video chat can actually see it. If I can get this to stay on my hand. All right. It lands you side down, so you get to lead off.
Guys that I am most excited to see. Yeah, I mean, if Winston Wright's out there and giving a full go, that's the guy who I want to see the most. I was in the building when he caught a ball. The DB tried, if I recall this correctly, DB tried to jump and knock a ball down, so took himself out of the play. But still, Winston probably had another 35 or 40 yards to run. And it was good to see that kid open up, put it into fourth and fifth gear, and confirm that he's 100%. I would love to just continue to see his ability to cut, excel, everything else. I also, and not to just take over and ramble here, I'm curious as if he's a piece in your punt return game or what you even show in that. I mean, again, it's not state secrets to say that I think they're still searching for somebody there. Absolutely, 100%. And maybe obviously Winston had some pretty special moments as a kick returner at West Virginia. I don't know if punting would be something that he would ultimately work himself into, but regardless, I'll watch him the most of anybody.
Buy or sell, brought to you by the legendary Home Loans Group. FSU will miss Pittman more as a punt returner than as a receiver if he's not able to return.
I'm going to sell, actually, despite initially wanting to buy, only because I think people undersell him on the role that he played when not being a catcher of the ball. I mean, just so physical, the attitude that he brought and the consistent attitude. It's one thing to be an MFer for 2 or 3 plays a game, right? It's a whole nother to consistently put somebody in the bench, consistently look for that extra block. That was Micah. And that is that's something that is special that he brings. And ultimately, I am a believer that attitudes like that, and if you're trying to get on the field and you see that can start to rub off on a broader position group. So, and I think the world of Micah as a punt returner. I mean, it's solid. He caught the ball, which is a commodity that we desperately wanted around here for a long time. Didn't try to play air traffic controller, a welcome change over that of the past decade. And hey, look, he didn't take it, 80 yards to the house, but he got you 9 or 10 yards. And that in 2023, that's a solid, situation out of your special team there. So I'm not trying to undersell the punt returner. I understand the importance of that, but I do think people undersell him on what he was when he was a receiver and not a pass catching receiver.
Agree with you on that. I think just because the number of like the volume of plays is the way that I would sell it to. I was curious to see if you would go the other way on that. I like the Winston Wright pick here a whole lot. I'm a little concerned about the receiver room, man. Like, to be just completely frank here, like I know I was on the take a receiver in the portal train before spring, and I actually think I was wrong to think that at the time, but I'm not completely convinced that you shouldn't do it now. Uh, like, I'm not sold on Kentron being a number 2 receiver for you. So like, can Winston Wright be a 2, or is he more of a guy who can be a slot 3? We don't know. Like Johnny Wilson, he's going to be your number 1. I don't think, like, if your goals are win the conference, make the playoff, I think, like, can Kentron truly be a 2 for you right now? I don't know. Span, I think, is a guy that's probably more of a 2024 type dude if he had to rely on him to start. Like Darren Williamson obviously has, been out, right? So has not been getting those practice reps. Like, they're going to have him in the fall. Like those are important questions, I think. And like, if you had to roll out and play a game right now, it's probably like, Wilson, Wright, Portier. Is that going to get it done? And you're muted.
Thank you. Not trying to gas a kid up, but I think I think All Day Dre's in your rotation immediately. And I think
sure
Vandarius is looking to take the catches and receptions that Pokey Wilson got a year prior, to be honest with you right now. Now, we can be concerned as to what that means if a freshman walked in and immediately puts himself in that place in a position group. I agree, but I do think you've seen an emergence of a kid who seems to have some of the, innate traits that are necessary to be a wide receiver. I know that's not a great description, but, sometimes it's just about finding space, catching the ball, and making the most of your opportunities. And Dre seems to be able to do that. So, I agree, man. In retrospect, would have loved to try to keep Malik McClain and maybe see if other things would have happened there. But kids make decisions. I don't blame him at all. It sounds like he's doing well at Penn State, and I certainly wish him the best. But
I think you could probably do better in the portal than Malik McClain, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he was never reliable. Like, he's a very good potential guy, but I don't know, man. I'm curious to see this room and how it evolves. Like, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I mean, I think the odds are that somebody who's not currently playing right now, ends up helping you out in the fall, and it'll probably be fine. But like, if you made it to the playoff and you rolled out there with, Johnny Wilson, Vendrivius, Winston Wright, and Portier, Georgia spits on that. I don't think that scares Bama. Yeah. I don't think, like, Ohio State, Michigan are not shaking in their boots. They're seeing better than that in practice.
I think that's a fair barometer as to where you want to go, certainly. And that is the apex of the sport. You're also, you're just a roster that was a couple years away from one of the more disappointing seasons in school's history. So, no, I mean, I agree. And I think you start to see that, the emergence of Dre, getting Hakeem Williams. It looks like you're going to continue to, recruit a level of player that's different than what you've been able to bring in the high school ranks over the next 2 years. So I think you see, the green shoots of recovery, if you want to use such a term that a friend of the Scottish lad used on this podcast 5 or 6 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago at this position. You see, that turnover and that different level of talent starting to happen. Who knows? I mean, the portal that opens in 3 days is going to be crazy. I don't know what it's going to look like. I think it's going to be very busy. And it's this extra added dimension of the SEC not being able to like, hunt within their own conference. So they're going to be out looking outward. I
Well, let's
imagine they're going
explain
to
that to
be,
the viewers because
yeah.
I'm not sure everybody knows how this works.
No, it is a interesting dynamic here. So what the SEC does not allow intra conference transfer portal within this second window. If I'm not otherwise describing that correct, please let me know.
No,
Um,
you are correct here. Although I think graduate transfers
I think
are
graduate transfers are
allowed.
almost always, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to speak. I don't know the SEC's rules, chapter and verse. So I don't want to sound like I do, but I do believe graduates are almost always allowed to move. So what it means is that if an SEC school needs to, shore up a spot on its roster, first place it looks is the Big Ten and the ACC. So you can just figure out who in their geographic pattern has roster talent that they may be interested in, and we'll see what it looks like in 3 or 4 days.
100%. All right, so you went Winston Wright. That was going to be my number one pick. Like that's the guy I think you want to see live, assuming they let him full go, right? I expressed some of my concerns about the receiver room. I don't think it sucks by far. I just like, if you're like, I just think you have such good depth on this team at most spots because they've just done such a damn good job. And obviously, like battles in with retention has been tremendous. There's some spots that concern me a little bit, and I'm like, what if you run good, right? And like run good is kind of like a poker turn, right? Just stuff's going in your favor. Like what happens if you make the playoff? Like what happens if you do have to play one of these teams that have like a top 10 roster in the sport? How does that go for you? Like that's kind of where my mind goes on this kind of stuff. So I kind of think the reason I'm going to pick this guy is if the receiver room is not amazing, maybe you can supplement it enough because you went out and Jaheim Bell transferred and wanted to come to Florida State. Get back a little closer to where he played high school ball, was a really dynamic athlete for South Carolina, probably misused at times. They weren't able to get him the football in the passing game. They actually played him at running back a good bit, a versatile weapon, a guy that I think could also play some of the Micah Pittman role potentially for you if Pittman's not able to get back in time because of the chess piece way they moved him around. He could be an interesting jet guy too, I think. Like, they like to use Mike on the goal line.
Yeah.
Like Jaheim Bell played running back effectively. Like I think you could do, instead of that like reduced split slot into round, you could just run tight end around, right? Like that's, the guy's got some juice like that. You think you're probably going to push people around this year on the offensive line. Maybe a little less so if Smith's your center. If it's Roddick, I think you're kind of full bully ball mode. But like Smith does a lot of really good things too. We shouldn't discount that as far as his agility and the consistency of snapping the edges to Smith at this point. I don't think anybody would discount that. But maybe you play more 2 tight end stuff. And like that to me is really an interesting way to go about this. Georgia did it last year. I think you have some fun stuff to do there. Your play action stuff, which I think Jordan does play action pretty well. I mean, I could see you being kind of more jumbo spread this year. Kind of what Jimbo wanted to put together, never really could. In the back half, you talk about that. Like you want to be multiple tight ends that are both good, and they never really had two tight ends that were good at the same time. Jaheim Bell for me is a guy like I want to see it. How are they looking to use him? They'll probably be pretty vanilla in the spring, but I'm excited to see him because he was one of the better athletes in the SEC.
Jaheim Bell is a great pick. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a very, very much could kind of indirectly get a lot of the Pittman opportunities. I agree. I'm fascinated to see what they do. Double tight sets. You've got 2 players that I know they're interested to see to incorporate as much as possible. And Morlock's going to take an adjustment. You don't just come from, shorter college and start playing at Florida State immediately. But that guy, from what I've seen and what I've heard, has shown a pretty consistent ability to, he's not taking balls to the house, but he's grabbing 12, 14-yard catches routinely. I mean, he is a chain moving tight end. And if Jordan gets comfortable with him, watch out. He really could be special. The Jaheim Bell one's great. I'll be a little quicker here. Although before I do, I will also say, fascinating to see what they do with Toa Philly, because you can play multiple sets. You can have a 2-back set and keep the same personnel, line up, and put Toafili in the slot or something else like that. And that to also go back to old Jimbo philosophy and speak, the ability to be multiple without changing personnel is what everybody is always looking for. And Toafili is just unique in the ability there. I'm really interested to see how they use him and how many snaps he gets as a dedicated running back and what they use him in his passing game.
That was actually Norvell's presentation at the Nike Coach of the Year clinic this year. Was literally how you call it to keep it simple, to run a lot of different formations with, like, they're trying to dumb it down for high school coaches, basically, who were there. Not dumb it down, but like not for the high school coaches, for the high school players.
Well, you got it same as you do. You got to parse down a pro book or pro philosophies to implement them in college, and you got to do it in college to high school. So
I didn't want our high school coaches to watch the show to make me think they're dumb. They're not. Their players sometimes are, or at least they're new to the game. But yeah, like I thought that is true. FSU does run a lot of different formations with the same personnel. I know Digital 1 OG asked, buy or sell. Toafili takes 30% of his snaps at receiver or split out from the backfield. I'm gonna okay. Non-garbage time snaps, I'm gonna sell. Or no, excuse me. Non-garbage time snaps, I probably buy. I think you'll probably get a lot of carries because you're gonna have a lot of games, man, where I project you to blow teams out, that are over with 20 minutes left. So somebody's gonna get those carries when you're up 20, and that's probably when you're gonna show yourself somewhat as a back if you're Toafili. Not that he's not gonna play during the contested part of the game, but I think during the contested part of the game, the versatility with him probably does increase. But he's still going to get a lot of carries at the end of these games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think.
How many rounds you want to go on this? 5?
I don't know. Let's just kind of maybe until we peter out.
Cool. I'll make this real quick. I want to continue to watch Bless Harris. I mean, I've been really impressed. He's been a nice dose of humility for Jared Verse on a couple of plays. I want to continue to see what I think I've seen out of him, and if so, continue to be pretty optimistic about what this offensive line could end up looking like next year.
100%. Look, do you have a high end like NFL guy at tackle in your starting lineup right now? I don't think so. But
you do. He's just a true freshman.
Well, yeah, true. And I don't think Simmons is going to be a starter this year. I'd be shocked. But I mean, like, guys with special talents, if maybe something crazy happened over the summer, I don't know. Like, occasionally you see this. It's rare, but that's why those guys are rated that highly. Occasionally they make crazy jumps over 3 months, and like, whoa, okay. But it seems pretty doubtful given the experience that the other folks in this lineup have. But think about it. Like, I think Byers can play tackle in the ACC at a high level. I think Bless Harris, like, they were very excited about Bless Harris last year. They thought they hit on him, and then they were pretty bummed having to play Jasden against LSU. Now, it worked out. They protected the guy well, but they were really pretty high on Harris before the injury. Seems to have worked back well. So, like, you get Byers, Harris, Robert Scott coming back from the injury, assuming that works out. That's 3 I think I feel pretty good at tackle. Darius Washington as an emergency tackle is not going to get you killed against most of the teams that you play. Against the best teams, he's not going to match up well playing tackle, right? But you really have to protect him because he's more of a guard body, I think.
Yeah.
Armella, honestly, is a guy who can make another step. Like, dude, that's just 5 guys I named, and we haven't got to, like, if Lucas Simmons is your break glass guy,
yeah,
that's a hell of a break glass guy. I think most teams would take that. I was just listening to the Bucknuts podcast because I run the podcast here 24/7, and they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure Ohio State's going to be taking 2 tackles in the portal, and they already know who they want. This come March.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not great. Like, Florida State's not the only team out there that's got some issues on the roster. Like, amongst the elite teams, like, all these rosters are really damn good. Everybody's got some holes. I like this O-line depth is pretty damn good, man. Like, knock on wood here, but you may not have the amazing upside, but you have very, very high. Like, the downside risk is good here because of the depth.
Yeah, Absolutely. Who would be your second pick, sir?
Okay, so I mean, we've done so much offense. I'm gonna go defense, and I want to see Shaim Brown,
Mm,
right? Like
mm,
safety here. I almost went Fintrell, but I'm gonna go Shaim Brown because they moved Duke Cooper to safety, right? You get Shaim, you get Akeem Dent. I think we generally know what he is. But like this defense has to be better in the back end, and I want to see him like play to his talent level out there. And I mean, we'll see if he does. But do they do they need to hope that a safety pops in the portal come May? I don't know. Like that's about the only position that Adam Fuller has legitimately kind of called out this spring, right? Everything he says, you watch press conferences, he's very positive, and then one day he's like, "We just need more from these guys. We just need more from these safeties." And like you got to find two starters who you like. I think can Shaim be? I think Shaim has the highest upside at safety of those three guys if he plays to it.
mm-hmm.
But I'd like to see some consistency at him. That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. No, your safety this position that you'd love to see emerge, and we'll see how Duke Cooper adjusts to being moved there. And yeah, a lot of you could lose you could use a lot of picks at the safety position as far as players that you hope to learn more about or have a better idea as to what their end product might look like.
You are up here, sir.
I mean, I've seen it. I just want to continue to see it in as probably a multiple of like 8 or 10 as opposed to how many people he's ever played before in his life. I'd love to see what Kyle Morlock looks like. I mean, I don't know exactly what Shorter brings in, but probably somewhere around like 1,500 to 2,500 people. It's an adjustment, but would love to see what it looks like, and would love to see a guy continue to play the level that he has at practice and shown that he has the ability to adjust to this level. And yeah, probably be a little bit nervous just because it's a little bit of a different environment than anything he's ever been in, and get used to it because LSU and Orlando is going to be a hell of a lot different environment than anything you've ever been in. But yeah, would love to see Morlock with 3 catches for 42 yards or something like that. That would be a great piece of evidence that the player that you've seen in practice who adjusted to the level of competition and turned into a regular contributor is continuing to scale at this rather aggressive growth curve that you have to have if you're coming from that level of college football.
Exactly. All right. So I'm going to go do Cypress, right? Just been listening to a lot of these NFL podcasts for the draft coming up. They are pretty quick to note that corner play is one of the least consistent positions year to year with the same guy, right? Like sometimes they'll have a PFF grade of like 90, and the next week or next year they'll have a PFF group of like 70, both in college and in the NFL, and it varies a lot. He was very good last year, and I thought he was solid the year prior. Like what level of where does he level out, or does he level up even? That'd be really cool. Like, can you get another level out of him? I'm excited to see your Virginia corner do Cypress, man, because I think Renardo Green is a good ACC corner, right? Like not a first round type. I don't know. Maybe he gets drafted, maybe he doesn't, right? Cypress probably has a little more upside than Green, but regardless, if he plays like he did last year, and I think Renardo has played well and is much better than I thought he would be at corner. That's a nice corner tandem, man. Like that nickel was a major problem last year, but this allows you to focus a little more resources on the inside. And so I just kind of had some fretting there about safety kind of, but now I'm thinking, okay, like maybe if you play a little more island type stuff with your corners, if they're good enough, I'm excited there.
Yeah. I'd love to see Fintrell continue to progress. There's plays that when you do see it, you're like, oh damn, yeah, that is a special play. That is a guy who has just a little bit of a different skill set as far as just straight. I think he's squatted somewhere in the 5s or something. Like there's flashes of like, yeah, that's a different level athlete compared to some other people. But no, I mean Renardo Green, I think in the here and now, Renardo Green is a better college defensive back as of right now for what Florida State's doing than I think anybody else on this roster. Now, come snap one against LSU, that may be totally different as far as Fintrell adjusting the program, a guy with the raw pieces that are, as good as anybody on this roster. But Renardo's had a great camp. Has continue to play really well, and it's just a very, very solid piece. Jerry Jones, all right, I don't mean to break from the draft here, but like Jerry Jones, better defensive player than I thought he was going to be ever. Credit to that kid. Defensive back doesn't have any kids that are like first round picks, in my opinion. Fintrell has the physical ability to test and run like it, so that'll be interesting. But I think there's a load of really solid, plus level players here, and excited to see what this room looks like. So
100%. Alejandro in the chat asks, do we think we'll see any impact of Pat Surtain coaching the DBs this spring game? Great point. Like a couple guys we brought up already are DB. So I do want to see in a game how they look, right? 100%. Kelvin Lane wants Renardo to replace Jamie Robinson, and Cooper should move back to his corner and work at it. I don't know that Renardo wants to do that.
Well,
right.
I understand the logic there, and certainly physically that would potentially make sense. Although Renardo's not Jamie, but I don't think you take your best right now. Maybe your best DB and move him to another position so that you can move a player that didn't impress DB last year back to DB. That I understand where you're saying, and from a video game perspective, that probably works out. But I personally would not do that.
Also, corner's kind of a premium position, and safety's not. So,
yeah, true.
I mean, you kind of want your better guy at corner typically. It depends on how you run your defense, but yeah. All right. Gilbert Edmond is the guy I want to see. Like, just new dude, South Carolina. On Cover 3 yesterday, we were talking to Cole Kublik, and he does, I think, really nice SEC breakdowns. And he was talking about how he likes South Carolina skill guys, and he's pretty worried about them on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And part of that was they had transfers out to, better programs on that D line, like Birch going to Oregon, and Gilbert going to Florida State. So with the loss of McClendon, who my thoughts on him are, I think, well known, like solid player, not a difference maker. Best of luck, obviously, wherever he goes. It does thin your depth out a little bit, right? When you think about it, you got kind of four guys right now: Verse, Peyton, Turner, Edmond, and then you sort of get into that like Hester, Lamont Green range where, like those aren't guys that I think you want to rely on in your top 6 or 7 games, personally. So I want to see.
Yeah. I love Lamont Green long term. He's not going to be ready for Clemson or the oddity of the schedule here is that your first 4 games are so impactful, and you almost have to approach camp as to who you have ready, who can immediately contribute in the LSU and Clemson game, and then kind of start to coach to have a little bit of flexibility and maybe reps and how you bring players along from there. I will say that Lamont Green Jr. looks a little undersized, but seen a couple plays in practice where he's beat some pretty decent tackles too.
He plays hard.
There's something there. He's just got to continue to grow into his body, and it'll be there. It's just not somebody you want to look. You don't want to put any true freshman along the line of scrimmage. Very rarely, ever. And he just doesn't have like a NFL body as a true freshman. So just got to work from there.
100%. All right. You are up, sir. If anybody else you're really excited to see.
You took mine with Gilbert there. Look, I'm interested in this. I just say the backup quarterback idea, and Brock Lynn's not going to be that this year. That's not what I'm suggesting. But Brock Lynn has had a whole lot of really good practices. He's had a couple moments where he's looked like a kid that should be a senior in high school, and that's what you expect. But I can assure you, or I can't assure you, I can't imagine there's a world in which quarterback 2 and 3 haven't noticed what quarterback 4 looks like. And so I'm just interested in see how Duffy and Rodemaker play. And I expect that Tate's probably your number 2 right now, but I don't think that's decided. And maybe the spring game can just give you a little bit better idea as to what it looks like. Now, we're never going to take a ton away from the spring game, but and Louisville will always be there, and a reminder of something that I and many others were very wrong about as to what tape could look like. But if you just came out and had a exceptionally disappointing performance from either of those two guys, that might sit in the back of their head as like, hey, look, I know what's coming as far as Brock Glenn. I know that they're going to continue to compete for high level quarterbacks out of the portal or high school. Maybe we get a little bit of clarity there. It's a long-winded, circular way of saying something, but the quarterback position in particular, from numbers 2 through 4, is something that I will have at the top of my list.
100%.
See how I just took 3 players with my one pick?
That's
how you got to start thinking about this.
That's very fair. Oh man. I'm kind of not out of guys I'm excited to see. I'm just kind of curious like who I should pick next. Here's one. I want to see the bounce back from Dennis Briggs. Like, guy 2 years ago really flashed. Last year was not a good football player, I think, because of the injury, and just trying to help the team, right? Like, guy that was willing to move around. But I'm like, there's a chance you need him, so I'm interested to see kind of what if he's full go, what he looks like.
I think that may be it for me, man. I mean, I'll continue to look at the linebackers, see what Lundy and Graham look like in particular, but I don't know that I have any other, real people at the top of my list. Honestly, it's a reflection of this roster. I feel pretty damn good about a lot of the players I listed, but hey, I want to look at Fabian Lovett, bud, or I want to look at Jared Verse. I mean, that's a good idea. Look at him,
Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah, I bet
that's actually one. Yeah, like I'd like to see him dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of leave spring with a good taste in your mouth, because he has had some real dominant moments.
There's no other place that leaves a good taste in your mouth in Tallahassee, quite like Madison Social, bud. And they are opening up at 9:00 in the morning on the day of the spring game. So as somebody that's just staying right next door, more or less, I can assure you that I'll hit up Madso early and often. We also have a Battles In thing Saturday night there if you want to swing by. But yeah, no, Madso, always the great spot. Township, all the young kids love it. And the great spot, Charlie Park, Tallahassee's best rooftop bar, and a great supporter of the Nolecast. So big thanks to the For the Table restaurant group, Matt and his team, for all that they've done all that they've done for us over the years.
No doubt. All right, so we had some questions that we got. I think we had some Patreon questions, patreon.com/Nolecast. I think we also had, let me see here. Let me find a couple of these. I thought I liked them either on my account or on the Nolecast account. Or it must be the Nolecast account. Look here.
Let me just hit a couple comments in chat real quickly. Southern Hayes says that he's really excited, or he thinks that Edwin and Conrad Hussey are going to contribute early. I agree that Edwin has the ability to flash early. I don't know if that's going to contribute or mean that he's like a player that you see on the field, but I do think that you'll hear pretty impressive practice reports about Edwin fairly early. And yeah, Hussey's at a position that, maybe he could see something if there's not otherwise certainty about what you have at safety. Digital 10G ask about Fisk. Yeah, I mean, he's been in a green jersey every practice or video that I've seen. I just don't know how much you can take from that. Otherwise, you've been very excited about him. Moves really well, impressive in some of the tour duty stuff that he did do, if I recall correctly. And I think they're pretty excited about Fisk.
And they knew they needed the procedure on him, I believe, when they took him, right? So like it wasn't a surprise thing. I think that was part of the calculus. Like, hey, this, the shoulder surgery thing is part of it. I'm fairly sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think he's going to be full go by fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they're I think that they're more than confident about that. Oh.
Yeah. What players from this roster do you think will enter the transfer portal? I don't know yet. I kind of want to see what happens in the spring game, because although it's just one practice and it is a practice, guys do put weight on the spring game more than I think they probably should. Like, if they're the prudent way to do this decision making, if you're a player, is to think about how everything went during camp, not just the spring scrimmage. But a lot of them are going to be like, hey, this is the one that was on, quote unquote TV. So, yeah. All right. So a couple questions here. One, how many ACC teams would take FSU's backup offensive line?
That was a listener question?
That was a listener question. I thought that was pretty good.
Great question, man.
That is
fantastic. 5.
Virginia for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think Boston College.
Georgia Tech.
Yes. Yeah. Georgia Tech. Yeah. Their O-line is hot garbage.
I think Virginia Tech would do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think they would definitely consider it. And depending on what Syracuse has there, because they lost their best guy to the draft, Matthew Bergeron.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 5's a good number, man. Like, that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, that's O-line's not a position where you can frequently say, no, UNC would definitely not. No, no.
UNC's got a couple pretty damn good pieces.
Yeah. But I mean, that's pretty solid. Funk asks, what are the chances Armella transfers if he doesn't start this fall? I think low, right? Like, Armella's not an idiot.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I don't know if it's a good idea for me to go through the whole roster and start putting percentages on players, but
I don't think his transfer decision is based on, or like his long-term decision is going to be based on whether he starts or not this fall.
I think look, I don't know what a kid thinks, but he's made a great amount of progress, transformed his body. Is right on the verge of potentially being a pretty special pair of tackles with what you have with Simmons. I'd be surprised, but plays a premium position and has the high school pedigree as far as what he was as a recruit. So it's not like he's a mystery to anybody out there.
Agree with that. All right. So another question here. In what years do you think our national championship hype was equal or bigger than what we have for this fall? That's kind of an interesting look back to put this in perspective, actually.
Okay.
So
every
13,
year
12,
from
14.
Yeah. And every year from 87 to 2002.
For sure. I don't think 15. Do you?
No, I don't. No, I don't think 15.
16. Probably not.
National championship?
No,
I don't think so.
17
probably more.
Yeah. So in the last decade, 12, 13, 14, and 17 definitely had more national championship type hopes than this one, I would say.
Was the question in the last decade?
No, but I'm trying to think, like, since we've
tend to hear
had the pod,
to live in the here and now and modern football.
And definitely 87 to 02. Yeah.
Think about stuff when I was 4 years old. So yeah.
2018, no. 2019, no. Like, yeah. So I mean, it should be really one of the better years you've had in the last 2 decades, no doubt. And if you run good, if you stay healthy at the right spots, like, you definitely got some real potential here. No, I'm really excited where this thing is going, man. I think they've got a lot of good things cooking. So that's pretty encouraging. Also to the question about the portal, I think you have a lot of guys out there who have poor representation because a lot of NFL agents are not touching these NIL stuff, right? So you have dudes who are like not certified or just no experience They're not doing real research into what guys can make or can't make. It's just talking to people in the industry, right? And I think you're going to see a lot of dudes from big time schools jump in the portal because they think they can get more elsewhere. And I think you're going to have like a real conversation to be had internally at, look, Florida State, but also like a Georgia, Bama, all those. Like some of these teams kind of have a policy traditionally of like, you portal, we pull, right? Like they're not coming back. Once you go in, you're out. And can you think of any examples where FSU has let a guy portal and then come back? There may be one, but
I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and they're like, "Well, we let some guys practice," and I'm like, "That's a totally different situation with like
right.
Gainer and um." Look,
They're college kids. They're going to get some bad advice. They're probably going to act on some bad advice. They will realize that the advice was bad only upon entering the portal and realizing grass is not necessarily greener, and they'll want to come back. How are different college coaches and programs going to decide to handle this? Is a really interesting discussion to be had, right? What kind of precedent does it set? I don't know, but there are some people who think this portal cycle is going to be much busier than last year's late one.
I think it's going to be wild. For clarity, Bud originally heard those comments, if I understand correctly, from two different collectives, and I can only tell you that that is my perspective as well. I do think that there are going to be kids that jump into the portal. There's a lot of what I would describe as fluff in the portal or froth as to what might be out there. I think that might have, well, we'll see. I do think this will be an issue. I think we'll see this, and I think there'll be kids who may not find what they think is out there in the portal and see that it might have been best to not necessarily jump into it. But we'll know. We'll see. We'll see.
100%. I think we're pretty good as far as stuff from the chat. Wait, is Battle Axe asking which player other than the number 13 on this roster could be a Heisman Trophy candidate this year? I would say none.
I mean, if Trey runs for 239 yards against LA, if there's some crazy performance, Johnny's success is going to get attributed to Jordan from a Heisman perspective, right? So, like, if you're like, oh, Johnny caught 3 touchdowns, well, no, from a national perspective, that's going to be looked at as Jordan threw, 3 touchdowns to Johnny and however many to anybody else. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to, you're the gambling man, but if you want to like 1 to 1,000 player or something like that, then it would be Trey. But otherwise, it's Jordan exclusively.
Exactly, and they very rarely hang like 1,000 to 1 on Heisman anyway, right? Like. Yeah. Last year, I took a shot at 333 to 1 on Donovan Edwards at Michigan, just in case, because he was very good at the All-Star season. And I was like, there's some chance he wins this job. Like, Corum has an injury history. Corum actually stayed healthy most of the year and got hurt, very late. But, yeah, I could see that. Traditionally, if you think about guys who win the Heisman as a running back, let's say in the last, 15 or 20 years, it has been dudes on teams whose quarterbacks are thought of as just like game managers, not 100%. Good players. Yeah. Like
Alabama quarterbacks.
Yes. Right. And not the Bama quarterbacks like the last 5-6 years. Just the
Jay Barker types.
Jay Barker, McElroy, McCarron, like guys who don't go play in the league, don't get drafted highly. Those types. I think Jordan has too high of a profile for Benson to win it, probably. Also, like the usage pattern. I don't think Mike is going to just run Benson 30 times a game in some of these games that you're blowing everybody out.
Not when you got a guy like Rodney Hill. I mean, I know they are very excited about Rodney Hill, and Toafili is somebody that they always want to try to work the ball to. Look, you're the odds guy, whether it's 1 in 1,000, 1 in 800, 1 in 500, whatever. Oh, if Benson has any chance, he needs to run for a big yard total and have runs like he did in the Florida game, where he's literally just throwing defenders around. And if he goes out there and does that against LSU, and LSU goes on to, have 2 or less losses, then maybe there's some kind of, maybe there's some kind of path to that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's probably all I got on my sheet for today.
Want to always thank our friends at Congruity, Matt Lewis and his team, brilliant people to work with. I haven't spoken with Matt. I do believe he's going to be up here for the spring game, so hope to catch up with him on Saturday, drag him down to the Battles and tailgate. And if you have any questions about Congruity and you're around, certainly welcome to ask me or hit me up on social media. Congruity's been great for us, great for multiple businesses that I've worked with, and now great for 10 or 11 Seminole-owned businesses as well. So congruityhr.com is the website, and as always, we thank them for their support. So Bud, a listener, was kind enough to move me into a pretty decent sized hotel room up here. So if you want to swing by after the spring game, we'll have a little, maybe not an instant reaction, but we'll get something out after the spring game on Saturday. And this is fun. Hey, please do come by the Battles Inn if you're a member or not, anything else. Would love to catch up with as many listeners as possible.
Where will it be?
It'll be on Langford Green, Bud. You promoting son of a gun, marketer extraordinaire. Langford Green, we'll tweet out an image if you have any further interest or more details. And whether it be that tailgate or anything else, hope to see, interact, and have as many chances to, have as a game-like setting as the spring gives us. The sport that we love is unique in the fact that it packs basically all of our enjoyment into like 3 months or something. And this is the one kind of, this side of the seasonal cycle that we get to, come around and watch something that if you close your eyes and squint just hard enough, looks like an actual college football game. So enjoy it as always, my man.
Langford Green is between the Bowden statue and the statue,
Langford Green,
the northeast side of the stadium,
is out in front of like the lit spear. If you're familiar with that, that's what you're looking for. If you see the Bowden statue, you need to walk almost to the other side of the stadium to come see us. So,
awesome, man. Well,
all right, my man.
Cool. I will catch you there.
Thank you to all you guys who joined us in the YouTube stream and the comments, questions. Very much appreciated. If you have a chance to hit the like button, know that it is gratefully appreciated by us, and we'll be back to you on Saturday.